All right, so get ready to dive into some murky waters today because we're unpacking a story that's got all of Jamaica talking.
It's about the Prime Minister.
Yeah, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, some interesting finances, and an Integrity Commission report that's, well, it's raising some eyebrows.
It's less about a simple financial report and more about a nation holding its breath.
You could say that again?
It's testing Jamaica's commitment to transparency, accountability, and whether the rules apply to everyone, even at the highest levels.
And you guys sent us a stack of articles, user comments, even a letter to the editor. Everyone's got an opinion on this.
Rightfully so.
So for those who might not be familiar with Jamaica's inner workings, think of the Integrity Commission, or IC, as the country's official watchdog.
The ones who keep an eye on things.
Exactly. They're making sure those in power aren't lining their pockets.
It's important to note, this isn't some obscure process. This is the Prime Minister.
Big deal.
Huge. And he's not just accepting the IC's findings, he's taking them to court.
Okay, so let's break down what the IC found. They were looking at Holness's statutory declarations, basically his financial disclosures from 2019 to 2022. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. The IC couldn't actually prove he was illegally enriching himself.
And that's fueling so much debate. The report doesn't outright accuse Holness, but it does highlight some inconsistencies.
Right.
Like failing to disclose 4 bank accounts. There are questions surrounding certain financial transactions.
Careless, you'd say.
At best, from someone in his position.
Right. And Holness is saying any errors were unintentional oversights, quickly fixed. He even points to something called a pooling error to explain some of these discrepancies, right?
Yes, he insists his wealth comes from savvy investment.
The smart guy.
That's what he says. He's arguing he's always been financially astute. Any scrutiny is unwarranted.
But here's the thing. Jamaica's no stranger to corruption. So when you read through the user comments, it's wild.
Strong reactions.
Some are defending Holness, others are calling for his head, demanding he step down.
It makes you think, what does it take to convince the public that their leaders are acting honestly?
Good question.
Is the absence of concrete proof enough to exonerate someone, or does it just breed further suspicion?
Especially when it's someone at the top. Now, Holness isn't taking this lying down. He's firing back, claiming the IC's report is unconstitutional, violated his privacy.
Full defense mode.
He's arguing the IC overstepped their boundaries, both in the investigation scope and how long it took. He's even suggesting it's a political witch hunt.
To tarnish his reputation.
That's like a political thriller, really.
Yeah.
And amidst all this back and forth, you've got that letter to the editor we mentioned.
The voice of reason.
Kind of. It's basically a plea for sanity, urging everyone to think critically and not let their political biases get in the way.
That letter is a reminder that there are always multiple sides to every story.
Easier said than done when you're talking about politics, right?
Absolutely.
But things get even more complicated. The IC Oversight Committee, the folks who oversee the IC itself, are stepping in to review the report. They're even going to question the IC commissioners.
Ah, yes. Adding another layer of scrutiny. Shows how seriously they're taking this.
But here's where things get a little darker. There are reports of threats against the IC director and commissioners, like actual intimidation tactics, which is seriously unsettling.
That's incredibly alarming. Underscores the high stakes. Any attempts to silence those involved in fighting corruption undermine the system of accountability.
If the IC can't do his job freely and without fear,
It jeopardizes everything.
it's like, what even is going on in Jamaica right now? This case has really stirred things up, hasn't it?
It really has. And it goes way beyond just Holness himself, you know?
Right.
This is about a nation that's craving a government that actually works for them.
Speaking of the people, those user comments were something else. Everyone had something to say about this.
Yeah, there's one that said, if Holness has nothing to hide, why is he fighting so hard? It speaks to that lack of trust, you know?
Yeah, and then you've got the other side saying, this is just a witch hunt.
Yeah.
They want to ruin this guy.
It's so polarized.
Totally.
Yeah.
So where does Jamaica go from here? Is this a turning point?
It could be. I mean, the fact that they even have the IC that they can investigate the Prime Minister,
It's got to count for something, right?
it shows they're trying, at least. This whole thing has people talking about transparency, accountability.
So maybe a little hope that things could change.
They could lead to big reforms. Stronger IC, a code of conduct for politicians, campaign finance reform.
Wow, that would be huge.
But there's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
What if Holness just walks away from this?
It'll just prove everyone right, won't it?
Exactly. People will give up on the system.
It's like, what's the point, right? But we've talked about the consequences. What about solutions? What can they actually do?
Well, the IC needs help, obviously. More resources, more independence, protection for their people.
They're putting themselves at risk here.
Absolutely. And remember how we said Jamaica doesn't have a code of conduct for their politicians?
They need some ground rules.
Exactly. Clear expectations, consequences for breaking them. Oh, and we can't forget about campaign finance reform.
Money in politics,
Right. It all comes back to making sure the system works for the people. But laws aren't enough on their own, are they?
What else is there?
A cultural shift. People need to demand better, hold each other accountable. It's about more than just hoping for better leaders.
It's about the people demanding better, period.
And that's what's interesting about those user comments. They might be divided, but they're passionate.
It's a real turning point for Jamaica, isn't it? This whole thing with Holness.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes you think about how they want to move forward as a country.
Will they face these issues head on or just go back to the way things were?
Because that pooling error, I don't know. It just sounds like an excuse, doesn't it? All those details about the money and how it was handled.
It makes you wonder what they're hiding, right? Especially with no code of conduct for parliamentarians.
Imagine if there were clear rules about all this, about how they handle money, how they report it.
Transparency is key.
Exactly. And you can feel that frustration in the comments.
Yeah.
People are tired of feeling like this system is rigged.
And that's what's important to remember. This isn't just about Jamaica.
You know what I mean?
This is about all of us. We have to demand better from our leaders. We have to hold them accountable.
So what can we actually do? It feels like a lot,
Stay informed. Talk about it like we're doing now. Don't be afraid to speak up.
Our voices matter.
Absolutely. Support the people fighting for change. Call out corruption when you see it.
Because things won't just fix themselves, right?
Exactly. We have to be the change.
Wow. This deep dive has been a lot to process, honestly. But it's important.
It definitely makes you think.
It does. So to everyone listening, keep asking those tough questions. Keep fighting for what's right. And we'll keep diving deep with you.